You're listening to ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio, with your hosts Matthew C. Anderson and Joel Lindstrom. This is Joel Lindstrom, and I'm here with Matthew Anderson. If you've been listening to CRM Audio for a while, Matthew has joined us on several occasions as the CRM Jedi. And Matthew and I both work at Hitachi Solutions. We're both from the state of Minnesota. I don't live there. I haven't for 20 years. But Matthew, you live in the Twin Cities area, right?
I sure am, and it is pushing the freezing level at this point. We're almost above 32.
Nice. They call that springtime, I think.
That's right.
And the other thing, we have, besides being longtime CRM users, we both have a kind of an interest and curiosity about productivity. How do you do better at what you're doing? How do you be more effective at what you're doing? The idea of productivity. And I think CRM or Dynamics 365 at its heart, that's what it is. It when done right, it makes users more productive. So Matt, your interest in productivity and being better, more efficient, where does that come from?
Yeah, well, so just to kick things off, this is something that has been part and parcel to my what makes me tick, what has me so invested in technology in particular, is finding ways where I can use it to be able to do things, smarter, better, faster. And what I've found over time is that there's some consistent things, regardless of the specific tool that I'm using. There are certain things that come up again and again and again, and they have to do with not just that tool, but the process around it, how I'm specifically using it, and then branching out as I collaborate with other people. How can I make sure it's not just something that works well for me, but how does it work for that team around me? And trying to kind of work within that model, work within that framework using any number of different tools over the years has been an interesting challenge for me. It's something where, if I can come up with a better way to do it, it gives that creative side of my brain something to be able to play with, something to be able to chew on and try to look for that better way. Even if at the end of that, I realize, no, how I've been doing it is a pretty good way to go.
Right. And I'm struck by how many people do the same thing day in, day out and never really think about how they're doing what they do. You kind of go on autopilot or cruise control, and we always have 30-minute meetings because we always have 30-minute meetings. Mm-hmm. Why not have a 17-minute meeting? Make people talk faster.
Well, on that topic, there was a period of time where I started all of my meetings with a start time of 5 minutes after the hour or 5 minutes after the bottom of the hour, hoping that people would show up, so we could start on time, right? Just because the first couple of minutes of any of those is usually idle chit chat anyway, or waiting for somebody to come on, whether it's a virtual or in-person meeting. And people knew that when the hammer dropped and we started to get into the meeting, we were going to focus on getting through whatever we had in that agenda, and then we could call it quits when we were done. And there was also no expectation to fill up all that time on the back end.
I think you're absolutely right. Now, I was working for a client that did that because people were always late to meetings. Mm-hmm. And what happened would be we would just wind up starting at like 20 after instead of 5 after.
Yeah, well,
so,
it works. And because people were so used to, the top of the hour, the bottom of the hour, it was confusing and it caused more trouble. It was one of those perfect examples where trying to be more productive or use a productivity hack like that can backfire on you. And that's one of those things where, more and more trying to recognize those places where the effort that you're putting into this isn't actually getting you the benefit that you expected.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I find that some people take it too far, and the idea of productivity, if you read blogs like Lifehacker or things like that, you can follow productivity to a point where it becomes more work, where you're always trying the latest app and the latest task app, where you'd probably be better using a piece of paper. I think people confuse productivity and tools, and they're not the same thing.
No, you're absolutely spot on, right, with that. So for me, I am a firm believer that having a small set of tools that you know how to use really well is going to be much more effective than jumping onto the latest, greatest app that promises some of these rewards. Especially, it's not that I'm unwilling to look at some of these, but there needs to be a real driver, some real tangible benefit that I'm going to be able to get on the other side of it. If we're talking, a couple of minutes worth of productivity over the course of a day, well, that's not that big of a deal. If we're talking, a couple of minutes worth of additional productivity out of every half hour, well, maybe I'm interested then.
And that's looking at what works, I think, is what it comes down to. And, what works for you might not be what works for me. And to me, the system that's best is the one you use most regularly.
Yeah. And so you yeah, and when we talk about systems, there's systems that are kind of a software defined system that's out there, but there's also the part of that system that is your personal process that you use to be able to kind of adopt that system that's so important to it. And that's something where it's a skill that not everyone has worked that muscle in the same way to try to develop those ways to review those personal systems they have or the processes that they're using as part of the system that they have in place.
Right. I mean, to me, I've thought about this a bunch, and to me, it's staying out of the red zone. And to me, the red zone is when you are in reactive mode, putting out fires, you feel always feeling like you're behind on everything, versus being able to be proactive and creative. Because that's one of the reasons why I'm really, really big on controlling my email and making sure I don't have days worth of unread email piling up, just because I want to be able to have a little bit more control and be able to do things like record podcasts and things like that, versus always feeling like I'm a step behind and putting out fires.
Yeah. It's funny. So on the email topic, I am one of those people who has the fabled inbox 0. Actually, if I click over to my email, since we've been on the phone here a little while, I have inbox 3 right now. But it's interesting as you look at that proactivity versus reactivity to email. You talk to most people on the outside, or if you were to poll them, I think the answer that you'd get is I'm pretty good at staying on top of email, and nobody would expect that. Part of that is driven by the fact that my email inbox is so bare, but it is because of a number of different kind of processes I use, the way I check email, the way I respond to email, or strategically don't respond to email in some circumstances. All those things lead into what makes that happen.
Right. And so I think email, there's a lot of topics here that I'd love to get into with you. Email's one of them, time management, procrastination, things like that. I think there's a ton of topics that we could talk about, some related to CRM, some not. And, hopefully this is something that whether you're a CRM user, whether you're not a Dynamics user, this is something that you take away and maybe get some ideas or share some ideas with us as well. One of the things I want to talk about, since this is new, is your ebook you just put out on Skype for Business. I have a love-hate relationship with instant messaging in general and Skype for Business in particular. Things like every Skype meeting I have with a client, the first 15 minutes seems to be spent trying to connect to the meeting.
Yeah.
And so you put out an ebook. First of all, what's your blog?
So my blog is Connecting the Data, or connectingthedata.com.
All right. And so if you go to connectingthedata.com, you can sign up for and get Matthew's free ebook about Skype for Business. And it's 8 tips, I think?
Yep, exactly. It's the 8 essential hacks for Skype for Business. Even though I have a bit of an issue of using the word hacks, people just know what that generally means. So I landed there.
Right. And I got to admit, there were things that I did not know. So what are, I guess, if you could share one or two of them, just to kind of give people a taste of what they will find in the ebook, what are some of your favorite hacks for Skype for Business?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it breaks down into a handful of categories. It has something, whether you're someone who's just participating in meetings, if you're scheduling them, if you're trying to do some of that troubleshooting, or even doing the screen recording. These are all things that you can search around. You can find information about them. There's no, additional add-ins that you have to buy to be able to make them work. But, as a simple and straightforward example, for anybody who uses Skype for Business for their online meetings, they're doing screen sharing, one of the biggest complaints that there is that when people are trying to view that and push it to, say, a projector, they have a really hard time getting it to full screen. Just because there are so many different little buttons to be able to zoom, and what's your zoom level, and have you maximized the window, and have you there's a separate full screen mode that I kind of show you how to get to in the ebook. And it doesn't matter if you're using the Skype for Business app, the installed app on your computer, or if you're joining through a web browser, you can have it fill that full screen, and people don't have to squint quite as much to be able to see the content that's on there. And that's one thing where it's just, once you know how to do it, you're not going to forget how to do that. But you have to be told, this is where you actually go make it happen.
Yeah, I like that tip because I knew it, but I forgot it. And I all the time have the issue when I'm on a meeting with you and your face is covering up part of the screen and I can't see it.
Yep.
So that was helpful to make that go away. So yeah, if you use Skype for Business, I would definitely say go get that. There's a lot of good stuff in there and really concise and to the point, so it's not going to take you long at all to read it. And it's the one tip that again, I think I knew it but I forgot it, that helped me the other day, was for somebody who can't get in. Sometimes you got somebody from another company that can't connect to your screen share. Mm-hmm. I love the tip about adding the appending the URL to make it open in the web client, because a lot of times that works where for some reason you can't connect through the desktop application.
Yeah, and that's one where I've had that as my own personal reminder inside of OneNote that I search for, I don't know, probably once a month, because I never quite remember what code you're supposed to add in to make that work. But yeah, that's one where it's saved my bacon a number of times. But I will say, with even with the ebook that I put out and some of the details that are there, sometimes, whether it's Skype for Business, whether it's GoToMeeting or a WebEx, any of the major platforms, sometimes you do run into, just versioning issues or firewall issues and those kinds of things. So another one that this isn't necessarily in the ebook, but having a backup that you can pivot to if you do run into those issues is another great thing to have in there that I think is appropriate given the context of what we're talking about here. But yeah, I mean, it's not meant to be a magical fix-all, but it is going to be able to help the 80% of those where otherwise people would just be frustrated and not able to log in.
Yeah, so have a backup join.me or use the free GoToMeeting that comes with Chrome or something like that.
Exactly.
Have that in your back pocket. Yeah,
Yep.
That's a good tip. Well, Matthew, I think this has been a very productive first productivity podcast.
Oh, that's good.
How can people get in touch with you? Are you on Twitter?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at MC Anderson. You can also, as mentioned before, find me through my blog at connectingthedata.com.
This has been ProdCast, the personal productivity podcast from CRM Audio. You can follow Matthew C. Anderson on his blog, connectingthedata.com, where you can download his ebook about 8 essential Skype for business hacks. You can also follow him on Twitter at MC Anderson. Joel Lindstrom is on Twitter at Joel Lindstrom. Do you have any feedback for us or questions about how to be more productive? Send an email to mail@prodcast.show or leave a comment on the CRM Audio Facebook page. You can subscribe to ProdCast at prodcast.show, iTunes, or subscribe to the CRM Audio feed to get this podcast and other series from CRM Audio. This is Joel Lindstrom. Until next time, remember to stay productive.